when I have initially installed Laravel application, I have chosen SQLite database. And that is why in my configuration file .env, environment variables to connect to database has been set up to connect to SQLite database. SQLite is a file-based database, so in order to use it, we have to specify the path to the database file, and the default database file for the SQLite database in Laravel project is located under the database folder. So now we're gonna take a look how to connect to this database. I'm going to use graphical application to connect to the database called Table Plus, which is also available on Windows and Linux. So let's switch over to Table Plus, and in here I'm gonna create new connection. Let's use any name for this connection, and then we have to specify the path to the database file, which in the default Laravel project is located under the database folder, and the name of this file is database.sqlite. Now let's test this connection. As you can see, the connection was successfully established, and right away we're seeing several tables in this database, and those tables have been created during the Laravel installation process because during the installation, migrations have been executed. Now let's see if we can actually read the data from the database in our application. I'm going to create one record in the users table that we are going to try to fetch. So I'll switch over to PHP Storm, and in here let's create another route. Let's call it users. And what we're basically going to do in here is we're going to fetch all records from the users table, like so. Let's also not forget to import user class in this file. And then let's switch over to the browser and reference this path users. And as you can see, our one user record has been fetched. So that means that database connection is working properly. But what if, for example, we want to use different database server other than SQLite? And to connect to a different database server, I will use another application called DB Engine, which provides several kinds of databases, including Postgres, MySQL, and Redis. From here I'm going to create Postgres database server and connect to it. Let's start this Postgres server, and then I'll switch over to Table Plus, and in here let's establish new connection with Postgres server. But before I'll remove the previous connection, then let's create new connection, and by default to connect to Postgres, we can use Postgres username and an empty password. And there we go, we have been successfully connected. But as we can see, the Postgres server is completely empty. There are no databases yet. So before creating the database in here, I'm gonna modify my environment variables a little bit to properly connect to Postgres server. So the connection name will be PGSQL, the username will be Postgres, and the password will be empty. And by the way, all default configurations to connect to Postgres database are located inside database.php file. As you can see, default values for such configuration options as host as well as password don't have to be changed in our case, so we can remove corresponding environment variables from .env file, as well as environment variable db database, because now we're going to create database inside Postgres server with the same name Laravel. And this name will be used by default when connecting to the database. So let's create new database inside Postgres server. I'm gonna call it Laravel. But now if we'll switch over to the terminal and run the command to execute migrations, php artisan migrate, sure enough, in our database we're going to see several tables created by the migrations. And just because our users table is currently empty, that means that if I'll refresh the page in the browser, I'm going to get an empty array. And this is the route which is supposed to return all records from the users table. But the moment we're going to add at least one entry inside users table, I'm gonna quickly create one record in here. and then switch over to the browser and refresh the page once again, we are expecting to see one record. And indeed, this record appears. So as you can see, to connect to different databases from within Laravel application is pretty easy. And with the help of such tools as DB Engine and Table Plus, we can quickly create different database servers and connect to them.